Thank you again. Good evening. Once again, President Freeman, members of the board, Superintendent Alsacio, and Executive Cabinet. I'd like to thank each of you for your ongoing and continued time and efforts these past 2 months since our study session in reviewing and providing suggestions for PYL's 3-year LCAP, Local Control Accountability Plan. We've since amended the document to include the feedback we received from each of you as a result of a thorough and detailed review of the plan. The entire document, as well as the executive summary and data profile, is posted on the district website in both English and Spanish with a link to allow the community to provide additional and specific feedback, thus ensuring our plan is as comprehensive as possible and includes and represents the voices of our stakeholders. We're truly proud of the extensive process we followed to include stakeholder input, which you will recall involved a total of 9 different input sessions. We've since provided each of you a copy of the updated goals and actions for Focus Area 1.0 through 4.0 that reflect your recommendations, additional stakeholder feedback, and input from the Orange County Department of Education. We are pleased, therefore, to present the complete 3-year LCAP plan for your final approval tonight. Thank you, and then I will return control back to you, President Freeman.
Well, we received the latest changes that we have come through. Are there any questions?
President Freeman, I'd like to strike a particular section in the LCAP. This is going to be under goals and actions. This is going to be focus area number 1. Action item number 5. This will be 1.2B regarding cultural development course that would include advisory group. It would also include task force to check ethnic studies, and also the use of the course designed through the University of California. The State Board of Education also has it on its website for parents that are wanting to look at it, but in my opinion, it needs to be removed. We're on page 35 of 91, sorry.
Could you tell me tabs, please? Color tabs. Blue tabs?
Blue tab, goals and actions, focus area number 1.
Okay, focus area 1, and the page number, please?
Page number 35.
Perhaps there can be comment from Dr. Adamson. I know this was part of what we've had, and it was, so I'll let you comment.
I just, thank you for your input, Trustee Younglad. I just want to remind the board that this is really just for the approval of us to move forward with a pilot, which would enable us ultimately to put together a committee, which would ultimately be responsible for the selection of an ethnic studies course for us to bring back to the board for your approval to really adopt them for the 2023 school year. As it reads in the LCAP currently, this is purely only, you would only be approving for us to move forward with that process. Anything that we do, once the committee brings forward and they identify a curriculum that they've selected and would like to propose, we would bring that back to you, and it really would be up to the board at that time to approve that particular curriculum. But this time we're not approving any curriculum, it's just the process itself. I'd also like to add that I know there's been a lot of discussion around critical race theory, and there's been a lot of concerns. I think that would ultimately absolutely be something that we would be aware of as we're looking at those options. There are so many different selections for us to choose from, and that would ultimately be something that you as the board would have the purview to deny or approve. And ultimately it's not a curriculum, critical race theory, it's really just a framework, and so that really would be it would be your prerogative to make that decision at the end if you're comfortable with that selection.
So the ethnic studies elective that's offered right now, I understand it's offered through Golden College. What is wrong with taking that? Why do we need to do this extra step?
Really, ultimately, this would allow us to have then, our own curriculum would be taught through, by our own and it's something that they, we're putting our stamp of approval on. It would, the same option would be available for our students. It would still remain an elective, just as any of those options currently are through Fullerton College. And so it really would be, even once we do approve it, it would be for those students who select and choose, to take it as an optional course.
Would it be correct that we have other courses that are on a high level that would be equivalent to what some students might be taking at a collegiate level? In other words, we offer high-level classes, and of course, this being an elective course, what comes to pass on this. So, for those students that want that additional opportunity for a class on a level that might serve them well as they move forward.
Absolutely, I would give them that advantage. Absolutely.
So, Dr. Adamson, if striking this language, will that affect the rest of the LCAP? Will it stop the change in the LCAP? Will it cease? Will this be like a separate board issue that we will talk about, or how does that work?
I'm not sure I understand.
We had an opportunity to discuss this with our study session at length. So that would have been the time to have more discussion on that.
Well, so we would, if we removed it from the LCAP, we were to remove it, and maybe table it for another time.
Ultimately, it would
We could strike this and we could approve the LCAP.
correct. Correct. We're required to put forward, our plan by July 1st, as it stands. If you were to strike and so on, the language, we would still move forward with the submission of the plan.
I'm not interested in striking the language at all.
Also, wasn't this generated, a lot of it came from those very sessions you had for input. There was a high level of interest for this as a future elective. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So we do, as part of the process of the LCAP is to take input. It doesn't come solely from us. It comes from our community as a whole. And we had, I know in one session, did we have, I think it was 600 participants? It was a high number.
Right, that Zoom, absolutely, yes. And
So we've had phenomenal interest in the LCAP process. And this was part of the input and the surveys and so forth. I don't know, perhaps Dr. Elsasser has some further comments to make.
Just procedurally, you've made a motion and a second on the LCAP as presented to the board. And so at some point you need to vote on that motion or someone withdraws the motion. And if the motion were not to pass, then we do not have an approved LCAP. Then someone who wanted to make an amended motion at that point, that would be another possibility. But we have a motion and a second on the floor, so eventually it needs to be voted on as presented to you based on the feedback we received through the process.
Right. So this product is from that entire process of community input. Thank you. Okay, so with that, I think that is where we're at.
I just wanted to make one quick comment. I really think it's important to teach ethnic studies to our children. When I was in the 5th grade at Topaz Elementary, I had a teacher, her name was Mrs. Tackett. And she was actually in the Japanese internment camps that we had during World War II. And she really taught us the difference, not to hate our country, but to recognize that we make mistakes and that we can learn from them and we can become a better person. And that's what I feel like ethnic studies is. It's a bridge. It brings people together. It lets us see the good and the bad. That's what I believe is the intent of ethnic studies, is to bring us closer together and build relationships. And that's why I'm in support of it.
If I could add one more thing, our district, we're just at a point where we're looking at the process and bringing something in. And our district does deep dive curriculums that we bring forward. So this one is not going to be something that's just put on us or that we're just adopting straight from the state. This is something that we'll vet. It'll go through a full process, and then we bring that back and we talk about it. And I agree with what Mrs. Anderson said. This is about teaching empathy. And when I look at ethnic studies and what I want to see out of this course is how do we teach empathy to our students and to our community. We also that we recognize that and that we celebrate it. And that's what I think our ethnic studies courses should be and that I will look at as we bring it forward. And that would be my goal. But I think it needs to stay.
There were a couple of things that came up during the presentations we had during public comment. When BJ Watanabe spoke to times past, it brought back the memory of the efforts that were put into having that event she spoke of where different ethnic foods, I remember going to some of those and getting familiar with the fact that your lunch might look different than mine. But your lunch might actually taste good too. Those are important moments of understanding each other and who we are and what we have in our homes and so on. And also, someone made reference to exchange students. I remember the first time we got an exchange student who came from Denmark, Bo Gregerson, and we had this great party for him to receive him that late summer before school started. That was the opportunity to learn. And likewise, our first student we sent went to Bilbao, Spain, and she learned so much and brought back so much. And that's what we did. We were learning about each other. I think there's more put into the idea that there's something not quite right afoot if we look at how to learn more about each other's story. We're just going to learn about each other. And I also don't want anyone to underestimate the professional teachers and administrators we have who are very good at designing curriculum. We've done it in other courses. We can do this as well. And as has been said, this is not tonight doing anything to approve a curriculum. That will come, and that's as it's developed. But we're good at doing that, and we will have the opportunity to look at that. But in the meantime, I think that what we have is the opportunity to share more about who all of us are. We have a diverse nation, as I said on one of my prior occasions. We have a diverse district. We have diverse schools. And what's wrong with that? That's good. We just need to learn more about each other's story. So that's why I'm supporting of keeping this as a habit this evening.
Okay, so yes, I absolutely agree with the diversity. Being from Louisiana myself, I have grown up in a very diverse environment. I have a very diverse family. Now, what I can tell you though, parents, is to look at what is being given. The UC model, which is out there, is riddled full of nonsense. If you were to look at some of the categories in which they talk about, you would be appalled at some of the things in which they're saying about different cultures. And this should not be a time in which we have kids that are dividing themselves based upon skin color. This needs to be a unity thing. And I don't feel that this particular model is something which our kids need to go through.
I mean, I'm not going to approve anything that has any type of critical race theory in it. I'm not going to approve anything that, is pitting races against each other. So I actually hear where he's coming from. And I do think that the ethnic studies, the name, it's been used so many times with so many different curriculums in the past year. So if this was to go forward, I would say let's call it cultural studies, because it sounds like what we're doing is a cultural study. We're learning about people's cultures. We're not necessarily, from what we heard tonight as well, there's a lot of people
that when the time comes, that we would have something brought forward to us. Names can be certainly part of the whole process, and when we get to that point, that can certainly be a consideration to go forward with, as to, again, the semantics of it. But this is not capitalizing it, making it a proper noun. It's going forward with the notion of there are different ethnicities. If you cultures in your mind find that's fine too. I don't see this as a deal breaker for us to be able to move forward with passage of our existing presented LCAP, and then let the work begin on developing a curriculum. Whatever is being done at the UC, that's fine. I say fine, not because I'm giving an opinion of what they're doing, because frankly, I have not looked to see what else in the curriculum. But it will be one of, I'm sure, many resources that our team will look at when time comes to bring forth something developed and worthy of bringing to us and suitable for students to have as a considered course elective. And if I could add, the reality is that we have a Fullerton course right now. And so if we want to make sure that it aligns with what we want it to, then we should build it. Right, we have other existing examples that are coming into being, right? And this is the process we're about to enter. This is what this does tonight. We are not saying we will be the UC version. It will be our version. It will go with what we need and what is suitable for our district. And that is what we have done with our curriculum. That's why I would support this tonight. So, any further comment? Otherwise, let's go ahead and take our vote, and we'll see where we go next. Okay? All right. So, we have before us a motion and a second to adopt the local control and accountability plan, which was the LCAP for 2021 through 2024 fiscal years. Motion by Mrs. Anderson, second by Mrs. Buck. I now ask for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
1 opposed.
And also, okay, so, and Jackson, was it to the affirmative for you? Aye. Okay. So we have, to the affirmative, we have 3, that's Mrs. Anderson, Mrs. Buck, Mrs. Freeman. To the noes, we have Mr. Youngblood and Mrs. Blades. And the motion has passed on a 3-2 vote.
I just want to thank Dr. Adamson and the Educational Services team. This has been a 6-month project, as it is every year. It involves multiple meetings with stakeholders to gather this input and put this together. And so, a phenomenal job to Dr. Adamson and the Educational Services team. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Dr. Adamson. And you get to stay there and talk some more.